In this video I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our first homework about the simple linear regression model. The first problem loads in the FEV, forced expiratory volume data, and at the very beginning we get a scatter plot with a smooth curve going through it for the relationship of height and exhale volume. And in part A it says to use the graph and the summary output to comment about the relationship. And so what I'm expecting you to do is right here where it says discussion of the graph, talk about the direction of the association, about whether increasing height leads to increasing or decreasing FEV, and also talk about whether the relationship seems to be linear or nonlinear shape. Down below the regression model output, it says discussion of model output right in here, and so in your markdown file at this point you would type to me about the sign of the slope, the estimated slope right here for height. Talk about the sign of that coefficient, of whether it's positive or negative. Also talk about the significance of the coefficient, dealing with the test statistic and the p-value, about what it says about the relationship. And then also use the confidence interval right here for the slope. And the important thing there is whether the confidence boundaries are all entirely above, entirely below zero, entirely above zero, or do the boundaries contain zero. And that would have some important implications about the significance of whether height is related to FEV or not. And hopefully from the class notes and overheads you'd be able to comment about that. In part B, I'm asking about a particular patient, a boy that would be 200 centimeters tall. That's very tall. That's basically your instructor's height. And their FEV for this person was 4.5 liters of volume. And is that an unusual thing or not? And you would use one of these commands, one of these two predict commands, either the predict command that has the option confidence or the predict command that has the option prediction. And hopefully from the class you would understand which one should be used here. And for the one that you think you ought to use, just take away the hash tag in the front of the command, and then that command will execute. You'll get a confidence range as part of the command, and what you're going to look for is to see whether 4.5 liters is a reasonable value for what you would expect for a 200 centimeter tall person. If 4.5 is outside the confidence interval, that would suggest something abnormal. If 4.5 is inside the confidence interval, then that would be consistent with what you'd expect from normal lung function. Now on to our second problem about the birth weight as a function of the number of cigarettes smoked by the mother. That's what this LM function is doing here. It's using the number of cigarettes smoked by the mother, and we're relating that to the birth weight. In part A, it asks to give R squared and the interpretation. Well, the R squared value is automatically put in by a system variable, and notice it's the value from R squared from the output. In the markdown file you'll see the system variable usage for how that gets done. And then I'm going to ask you to use the notes to give the interpretation about what R squared means. It's the percentage of variation in the response that's explained by the predictor. And I want you to apply that definition right here. In part B, we're talking about a mom that smokes 50 cigarettes a day, and we're interested in the birth weight for a child for such a mother. And again, we'll have to find the right predict command and take away the hashtag in the front for the one we want to use, and then use that output to give a prediction for the birth weight and then a confidence interval for such a child. In part C, it says summarize the relationship using graphs and printed output, and I've given you the graphs here, one where the points kind of lay on each other because of overlap in the number of cigarettes smoked by the mother. The second version here has some jittering so you can see the points better. You have stripes because of rounding values for the number of cigarettes the mother would choose. And so what I would like you to do here is, at this point, it says discussion of model summary and confidence interval, so I'd like you to use the confidence interval for the estimated, for the population slope, the relationship between cigarettes and birth weight. Talk about the fact that this appears to be all different from zero. What does that mean about the relationship? And maybe from this output, talk about the significance of the cigarette effect as well. So use the model summary for that significance and the direction of the relationship coefficient, and talk about the confidence interval and what it says about the relationship. Just for your interest, I've given you some residual plots here which seem to show some curvature in the relationship. And remember that residual plots, if the model is good, shouldn't really show any evidence of curvature. Hopefully this will help you get started. Let me know if you have questions.